There we go.
We're live.
We'll go Jessica and then Andrew, and then I'll introduce Titus.
Cool.
Because I'm nice.
Oh.
All right.
Cat.
Go in there. Go in there. Cat. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 376 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jessica Carr,
Andrew Swafford.
And we are joined today by special guest, former patron, Titus Arthur. Titus, thank you for joining us.
I'm very excited about this. So
Titus is our what I come to understand is our expert on musical theater and Shrek the Musical. Exclusive things.
Definitely Shrek the Musical, less so musical theater. But yeah, I'm happy to be an expert on Shrek the Musical whenever possible. I'm just glad it's actually paid off.
Yeah, Titus watched Shrek the Musical, I want to say 2 years ago, just like stumbling upon it on Netflix, and told me about it immediately.
Yeah.
And my understanding is watched it dozens of times since.
Yeah, easily. It is something I visit probably monthly for as long as Netflix maintains it.
So as soon as I found out we were doing a Shrek series, I knew we had to have Shrek the Musical in it, just so I could do my due diligence to my friend Titus.
So I guess
you could be on the podcast.
I should apologize to y'all.
Yeah, we can address that in the second part of this podcast. But we'll be talking about Shrek the Musical as well as Shrek Retold, which are like it's two different spectrums of just stuff going on.
It's on the same spectrum, I would argue, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Head over though before you do anything, go to cinematary.com. We got new reviews up. As I mentioned, we got one of Cry Macho, the new Clint Eastwood movie from Logan Kinney. And Andrew, I'm going to let you give a little plug for your review.
Yeah. So I got a cool opportunity a couple of weeks ago through Cinematary, like being on the list of various like film distributors now from our work with festivals and things like that. We got an email offering us a screener for the new Nobuhiko Obayashi movie, Labyrinth of Cinema. And that name might sound familiar to some people as the director of House, the 1977 Japanese horror film, which is one of the most ridiculous things ever put to celluloid. One of my favorite movies of all time. And I won't give a full review of Labyrinth of Cinema, but that movie was Obayashi's final film before passing away in 2020. And he's a filmmaker that doesn't get enough attention outside of his work on House. I mean, anybody who's kind of like into art film or into like the Criterion Collection or whatever has probably heard of House and seen it multiple times. But it's often referred to, or kind of like, it's like almost implied to be this lightning in a bottle thing that, just kind of came out of nowhere and there's nothing else like it. But that's not really true because Obayashi made like over 50 movies and worked for over 50 years. And the thing is that his movies just didn't get distributed in America until 2009 when Criterion put out a Blu-ray of House. So I used that essay about Labyrinth of Cinema to kind of sing the praises of Obayashi as a filmmaker. After he died last year, there was a lot of people kind of like posting links to watch his other films because they're not widely available. And so I kind of gave some really short reviews of those to kind of like give people an idea of like the breadth of what's out there from Obayashi. And then I spent a lot of time trying to work through my feelings about Labyrinth of Cinema, which, like I said, is his final film. It's kind of like this final grand statement on movies and Japanese history and war. And it's very long and confusing. It is a 3-hour movie. It is a movie with 2 frame stories. And it spends a lot of time jumping from narrative to narrative. The gimmick is we're going to explore Japanese history through reenacting Japanese war movies. And so you get like reenactments of like 4 or 5 different stories from throughout Japanese history. And as someone who's not super well versed in Japanese history and has not seen the movies that Obayashi may or may not be like riffing directly on, it was an experience that I felt pretty distant from and confused throughout. And that's probably not going to be the experience of everybody. If people are a little bit more culturally competent than me, they might get a lot more out of it. I was pretty lost, and you're lost. If you're lost for a long time in Labyrinth of Cinema. It is a labyrinth, as the title suggests. So I tried to do my best to explain what that movie is and what it's trying to do. And like tried to be as charitable and generous as I could with the admission that like, I think I'm mostly confused because I'm the wrong audience for this movie. But it is certainly an experience. And if you like Obayashi style, there's a lot on display in that movie. So go read my review if you want like the full like expose on it. The main new release I wanted to talk about this week is Last Night in Soho by Edgar Wright.
We're moving.
Yeah, we can move on to that.
We're moving. Oh, sure. Okay.
And Zach, I'll like toss the ball back to you for a minute because you were the first of us to see this movie. I've seen it. Jessica's seen it. You saw it at TIFF. Do you want to give your basic thoughts as somebody who, admittedly doesn't remember that much about it?
I didn't. Yeah, like I remember walking out of this and I was like, I'm gonna forget this in like an hour, and I did. I really like Edgar Wright. I like a lot of his stuff. I'm trying to think. Maybe the one I'm most cold on is like Baby Driver, and I'm not incredibly cold on that one. That's just, there's kind of an energy and a level to his like Cornetto films with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost that are just different than like these stuff that he's done outside of that, like Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver and this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing I mainly remembered overall is just one, this is a really boring movie. for like all of the like dressing and stuff that it has and all.
I didn't find it boring. I found it like confused and misjudged. But it still held my attention.
No, I didn't do that. I was bored. I got bored immediately, and I don't know. I just remember it kind of being like, okay. Good for you that you like I don't know why you got this out. I don't know why you felt like you had to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question.
And maybe I saw that you were like talking about like doing a James Bond movie. Maybe that seems to be more your path. Just go ahead and just get sucked into a machine somewhere.
Yikes!
Because I mean, it's like I don't know. It's hit or miss with his not unless he wants to go hang out with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost some more, which I'm all game for. But,
yeah, for sure.
They seem like they want to move on in their lives. So I don't remember. I can't like link to any. I seriously don't remember anything that happened in this movie. Other than that Anya Taylor-Joy was criminally underused.
Yeah.
And
she's the best part of the movie.
She's great. And I remember her being deeply underutilized. But what did you all think of this movie?
Jessica, do you want to go or do you want me to
go? You can go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I went in pretty hopeful, despite the fact that Zach gave it a negative review out of TIFF. And I was honestly shocked that Zach gave it a negative review out of TIFF. Like, this was one of my most anticipated titles at TIFF. Edgar Wright is a filmmaker that I've never disliked a film from. Like, I like them all to various degrees. They're not all, like, A+ movies, but I think they're all really interesting on one level or another. And, like, the idea that he was doing a full-on horror movie and that he was doing it with two people that I really like, Thomas and McKenzie, who was amazing in Leave No Trace, and Anya Taylor-Joy, who is amazing in so many things, but especially The Witch, one of my favorite movies ever. Like, that just felt like a movie that Edgar Wright was making for me, right? And then Zach didn't like it at TIFF, and I'm like, man, I trust Zach. Maybe this movie's not for any good. That's sad. But I went in with an open mind and an open heart, and it was bad. I'm very sad to report that this movie is not very good. Edgar Wright made his first like actively bad movie.
We all do it.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. For people who don't know what this movie's about, we should probably say what this movie's about.
It's just bad. Don't see it.
Thomasin McKenzie plays a young girl who just graduated high school, and she's applied to fashion colleges. She wants to be like a boutique designer, and she gets into this college in London. And the movie doesn't really focus a lot on the fashion aspect of it. It mostly has to deal with like her being kind of sex repulsed. Like she gets to college and her roommate and her roommate's friends are like, they go to parties and they have sex, and she's like this mousy girl who seems to have had no romantic or sexual experiences in her life. And she just feels like out of place and uncomfortable all the time. And then it becomes a Midnight in Paris story, where at night she time travels back to London in the 1950s. And she like either follows or kind of inhabits the life of this character played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who's like this, 1950s, like glamorous sex pot, who she like sings and dances and flirts with boys. And it's like the total opposite of what Thomasin McKenzie's experience. And she kind of gets this charge from it. And when she's awake in her present timeline, which is our present day, she begins to kind of like take on the persona of Anya Taylor-Joy's character. So it kind of becomes a persona swap movie too. But the movie in the last 2/3 is mostly about like, on one level, it's about like objectification of women in like the music industry and the fashion industry and just like the media in general. But also about sex work, and women kind of being trafficked into sex work. And it doesn't really seem to know what it wants to say about any of that. And it kind of ultimately comes off as just kind of very sex negative in general, of like, sex is bad, and if you want to have it, you're a bad person or whatever. And like, it can't decide if there's kind of like three parties in any sort of like sex work situation, right? There's the prostitute, there's the pimp, and there's the John. And like at different moments in the movie, all three of those people are a villain, right? And the movie can't decide which one is the true villain. The answer is the pimp, by the way. That's the villain. But the movie wants to blame the prostitute and blame the John at many points. And it just doesn't work. Like, it also, like, the acting is pretty bad across the board, with the exception of Anya Taylor-Joy, who just like kills it every time she's on screen. And
she's not on screen very much.
So she's not on screen enough. Yeah. And also, like, when she is on screen, like, the movie is kind of judging her in ways that I'm uncomfortable with. So it, like, the coolest sequences in the movie are sequences where I'm supposed to be thinking, man, these are bad things these characters are doing. Like, there's this amazing sequence where she's dancing, like she keeps dancing with like guy after guy, like different guys. And it's this beautiful, like, kaleidoscopic, rainbow tinted, like montage sequence. And it's incredible. It's like such a spectacle to behold. But the whole time we're supposed to be thinking like, what a bad girl. She shouldn't be doing this. And like, it's just, I don't know. I just think it's bad. I just think it's dumb. Jessica, what did you think?
Yeah, it's not good. And also, I wonder who it's even for. Like, I don't know who the target audience of this is. It also says like nothing about sex trafficking or like how women can get caught in like circumstances that they don't want to. And like, also it turns the woman who gets caught in these bad circumstances into the villain.
She's a slasher. It's so dumb.
And it's like, I'm sorry, wait, what the fuck just happened? Like, the end, like, I could sort of see it coming, and then I was like, are you for real right now? Like, I had to turned to Cam, and I was like, what? I was like, wait, what? And also,
shout out to the late Diana Rigg, last role ever.
Yeah, and also, I'm sorry, but
who's she playing this?
She
the
plays
old lady
the old
at
lady.
the end.
Oh, wow.
And
what a
also,
horrible role.
Yeah, bad. And also, I'm sorry, but old people are not scary. Like, she could have just pushed her down the stairs. It was like, old people are not scary.
Sounds like you need to watch
don't-
M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, Jessica.
Or
old.
No, not even in old. They're definitely not scary.
No, they're cute and old.
Yeah, they're sweet and old. But yeah, so I'm just like it just wasn't good. And then so it also reminded me of A Promising Young Woman, because I was like, okay, so if this movie is saying all men equals bad, I was going to be like, okay, this is not a good message. This is not what we're trying to say. But he tries to not do that by having a boyfriend character who is good only. He is like, has no other.
He is
like,
a kitten. He's the cutest kitten.
Puppy
in the
dog.
world.
He's like, follows her around like a puppy dog. He watches her almost stab a woman in the face, and he's like, it's fine. I love her. I don't know.
She's got her quirks.
She's got problems.
Whom among us has not?
Also,
she did that.
Yeah. Also, he just like gets stabbed for her. And I was just like, okay, is this what we're doing? If he would have died, I would have taken off an entire star, like off of my review. So I was just like, so we're given like this one character who is a person of color who is like, by the way, when she like screamed and almost got the cops like called on him, I was like, this is a bad situation for this guy specifically. And I was just like very worried for him. So like halfway through the movie, I was just like, this guy is going to die. There's no way that he's not going to die. And I didn't even care about her. I cared about him because he was like the ultimate good character and a person of color. And he was like people were trying to kill him at every turn, and I was just like protect him, please, somebody. And that stressed me out for the whole rest of the movie. And then it was like, okay, old lady villain. And it was just, and I was like, I guess I see what you're trying to do, where you're like at the very end where she is like, well, you know, I had no other choice. This was my life. And it was like, you could have not tried to kill a young woman who you know could be in the same circumstances as you. You know what I mean? Like, if we're going to talk about like sexual assault, sex trafficking, why is there no like female solidarity? Like, why in the whole movie? Why? And the solidarity that they give with another woman is a cop. They were like, okay, this cop also, is trying to help you.
There's this character played by Terrence Stamp who the movie spends a lot of time like trying to fake you out, making you think that he's the pimp in the future.
Yeah.
But he's actually a detective. He's a cop.
Yes.
And like that's this big reveal. Sorry, we're spoiling this whole movie, by the way. It's bad. You shouldn't see it. It's this big reveal, like, oh, he was the detective, but he's a detective who was in like the past sequences of the movie for like 30 seconds, maybe. Like he's such an insignificant character, and then he just dies in the present day. And like, okay, why do we spend so much time seeding information about this guy?
Really anti-Terrence Stamp.
She was
just like, he's creepy looking,
and she was like,
I mean, a little.
Oh my gosh, that I just remember that bartender lady being, that's Lindsay, love. That's Lindsay.
And more anti-old people sentiment, you know.
Yeah, they're like old people.
Can we also agree that the coda, the final scene of this movie, is some hot garbage? Like it is the cringiest scene in the movie by a lot. I felt like I was watching a Disney Channel original movie whenever that happened.
Yeah.
I don't remember it. Remember?
Yeah, it's just like tries to wrap it up with a bow at the end, and be like, "This is a happy ending." Wink, wink. And it's like, no, it's not. You did nothing. You solved nothing. You solved nothing, and you said nothing. This did nobody any good. You did nothing. Congratulations. And I was just saying, like, I think the reason why all of these other movies like work for Edgar Wright is because he's very good at comedy and having characters that are archetypes and not like he's like trying to tackle a serious issue here, and you can't just have characters that are just like archetypes or like caricatures or whatever. Like, you can't do that when you're talking about sex trafficking. You can't do that.
It seems very much like a movie that he decided to write and got greenlit like after the Harvey Weinstein scandal, right? And I talked last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, about Ridley Scott's like quote unquote Me Too movie, The Last Duel, and how I thought that the criticism of that movie, that like, oh, this is just like this dude trying to get brownie points for like, knowing the basics about feminism. I thought that critique was a little shallow because like the movie actually gets all that stuff right for the most part. And I think this is a great example of like a male director trying to get clout on, the rising awareness about feminism and sexual assault, etc., but not really knowing what he's doing with it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that it's as egregious as like A Promising Young Woman. That movie is way worse than this.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty bad. Still up there as not good.
Promising Young Woman, I think, is like kind of mean-spirited. And I think this one is just like oblivious. Like, is Edgar Wright falling flat on his face?
It's like, we did it. We solved sex trafficking.
We did it.
It's like, what the fuck?
And then you're just like, Edgar Wright, have you ever had sex? What's going on?
Yeah, there's a great Letterboxd review, just like, you can remake Repulsion, but you have to have had sex at least once.
I mean, he dated Anna Kendrick for a while. I mean,
he did. I didn't know that.
And nothing happened, or whatever.
I had no idea that he was British. Also, I watched a video and was like, "Wait, what?
Wait, you've seen all the Edgar Wright movies and you didn't know he was British?"
Nope.
What? Those are some of the most British movies ever.
Did you just think he was just really liberal with the C word or something? Like,
I was like, oh, this guy loves England.
He loves England. He loves, yelling the C word all over the place. It's just a great. Yeah. All right. Well, last night in Soho. Don't waste your money, but it's in theaters.
Yep.
Speaking of in theaters, I'm going to talk real quickly because I'm going to write about it hopefully next week. But the new Wes Anderson movie is out.
It's been a while.
Sparking a discourse on people not liking Wes Anderson or being confused by Wes Anderson movies being Wes Anderson movies. And I'm like, yeah, that's just what he does. Like, let him do. He's the little kid in the corner. Like, let him do his.
He's playing with his dioramas.
Yeah, like whatever. Yeah. This was a nice, for at least for me, a nice return to form. I was not a fan of Isle of Dogs. Is I think the weakest Wes Anderson movie. I did not like that movie at all. This one is very much a return to the form. It feels very much like in line with Grand Budapest Hotel and Moonrise Kingdom and things like that, where he like and kind of Fantastic Mr. Fox as well, where it's just this very kind of melancholic, nostalgic movie. There's just throw an arrow at Wes Anderson movies and you'll find who's starring in this one. It's a lot of the same people. It's all of the same people. I think the newer people are like Jeffrey Wright, Benicio del Toro, Elizabeth Moss is in this. Christoph Waltz is in it. There's a
Leah Seydoux. She's new, right?
She was in Isle of Dogs.
Oh, you're right.
And Budapest. So, but this is set up so the main story is there is this like European kind of magazine or a magazine that was in Europe that would go back to like I think it was like based in Kansas or something, and it's kind of like this it's somewhat of a look at like the New Yorker, but like this magazine where you have like this dispatch out in Europe, and they just kind of write what's going on there for American readers. And so the editor of this magazine is Bill Murray, and the movie is set up with you have a couple dispatches, then you have 3 stories, and then you have an epilogue. And so the little opening things is like you have Owen Wilson as like this guy on a bike who rides around town and tells you what's going on in this French town. But then you have these 3 stories. The first story is about Benicio del Toro, who is this murderer who's in jail, who they learn is like this incredibly gifted artist. And so you have Léa Seydoux in that one. You have Adrian Brody in that one. The second story is about this youth revolt that's led by Timothée Chalamet's character. He's another new one in this movie. And you also have Frances McDormand in that one. And the third story is about Jeffrey Wright, who is a food writer who gets caught up in like this whole thing where he goes to a meal in a prison. And then there's like this whole kidnapping scandal where somebody kidnaps the prison or the police chief's son or something. I don't know.
Would you call this an anthology film?
It's very much an anthology film.
Okay.
None of these things are connected. It's literally just these. It's a retelling of a story that would be in this hypothetical publication. Gotcha. But I don't know. To me, it really worked. I think Wes Anderson is much more like I understand like a lot of the criticism that I've seen, but it's kind of like Wes Anderson is gonna do Wes Anderson, and like this is like he kind of just put all. It's just like I'm gonna do my thing, and if you like his thing, you'll be completely content with this movie. If you don't like his thing, you won't. Like it is what it is, and like. To me though, he's always interesting. He always is doing interesting things. There's just kind of this, I think a lot of the appeal with this one is you kind of have like this this waning like kind of nostalgia for print news, whether it's magazines or newspapers or things like that. But then you also kind of have like this waning nostalgia for like this kind of old sense of filmmaking. And I think Wes Anderson kind of has this way of creating films, and especially kind of creating references to films in a way that feels very old school. You see, a lot of references to Godard and a lot of the other French New Wave and I remember a couple others that I just noticed. But you just constantly he's constantly referencing the kind of these these deep cinephile filmmakers that people are very familiar with, and I think that there's kind of like this waning ability with a lot of people making a lot of filmmakers, a lot of people making movies to kind of have that like there's something kind of lost in his like kind of a lost art in his filmmaking, and so it's kind of nice to like kind of teleport into that for a while. And I think that this one is much more like much more focused than Isle of Dogs, which is just kind of all over the place. And so again, if you're a fan of Wes Anderson, I think you will like this movie. If not, I think you'll probably just write it off. But at the same time, if you're not a fan of his, why would you be going to see this anyways? French Dispatch, it's in theaters now. I recommend it. I think it's a good time.
There will be an essay about it from Zach in a couple weeks on Cinematary.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk about it. Talk about the movie. All right, I want to hear Titus talk about Hello, Dolly.
So
I don't really care. I'll be honest. I don't really care about like an assessment, like a critical assessment of the movie. I want to know why you've watched it so much.
So okay, well, there's a lot that goes into that. I don't do new things very easily. I have severe anxiety, and I don't handle like suspense well, and I don't handle thrillers well. Can't do horror. So I need a movie that I can watch over and over again. And Hello, Dolly is that movie for me.
That's the one.
The Audrey Hepburn?
Oh, no, the Barbra Streisand.
Okay.
And so it's just, it's the color. It's like this high saturation of just beautiful color. Her dresses are gorgeous. All of her outfits are wonderful. And then, I know more about the film than I should, which sort of adds other enjoyment to it for me. So one of the main characters, actually cannot sing. And so she acts, and then of course like some voice comes in. So kind of like an Audrey Hepburn, My Fair Lady situation where like she can act, but she can't sing. So they have like a voiceover for her.
That's in the movie. That's not like the production context.
Right.
Okay.
And it's also funny because there's this whole issue of people hated Barbara Streisand in it because they said that she was too young to play Hello Dolly. And
her name, Hello Dolly?
First name, Hello.
Yeah.
Last name, Dolly.
Sorry. I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, sorry. Playing Dolly Levi. And it's funny because the main guy is also like has gone on record for hating Barbara and like not thinking that she was very talented. And I remember the first time I watched it and I knew this fact and I was like, imagine having a problem with Barbra Streisand and then you open your mouth and you sound like this man sings. And it was just this like whole thing. But even with his terrible singing, like it's just a really cute film. Nothing bad happens to anybody. And it just brings me a lot of happiness and just watch it, like looking at the outfits. I think it's just wonderful. And so, yeah, once a week you will find me watching Hello Dolly.
How many weeks has this been?
I mean, I've
a year, right?
At least. No, it was actually my ex and I, it was one of the first films I think he showed me in terms of like musicals I hadn't seen before. And so I want to say probably going on 3 years is my relationship with Dolly Levi.
Jeez.
So, you know.
What do you,
Hello,
is there
Dolly.
anything that like
Sorry.
you notice on the like 100th viewing that you would have never noticed on the first viewing? Because I don't think I've ever talked to somebody who's watched any movie as often as you watched Hello Dolly. It's like, what is that experience like?
It's sort of like, it's almost like you hear that your friend is going to be an extra in a film. And so you're like watching it and you're like, oh, that's them in that one scene.
Yeah.
For Hello Dolly, that's how all of the extras feel to me. So I'll put on your Sunday clothes. I have my favorite girl who's like my friend. Like, I know her. I pick her out in every scene of that song. And then there are other characters you're like, oh, well, he in the park scene where they're dancing, he was in this seat in the train scene. And it becomes this whole thing of you're just like recognizing people.
It becomes Where's Waldo?
So much.
Yeah.
Which I think adds to my enjoyment of the film. I feel like, like these people feel like they have lives to me because I've seen them so much. So yeah.
Would you recommend Hello Dolly to people who have never seen it?
If you do not like musicals, please save yourself. But if you're like open to the idea of musicals, the music is really upbeat. The humor is hysterical. I think Barbra Streisand, the way she carries herself, some of this like she's playing this older woman and sort of these ideas that it's worth watching. Only if you stomach musicals. If you don't like musicals, you're gonna hate it. God, the scene where they get to Harmonia Gardens and there's just this dance break that I swear to God lasts an hour. It's actually realistically like 15 minutes, but that's like a long time to commit to like watching these waiters dance around. Yeah. And so if you can stomach musicals, it's absolutely a must see. If you don't care for musicals, save it.
Okay. I need to watch it. I've watched Shrek the Musical. Now I need to watch Hello Dolly.
Now I need to watch some real musicals. Whenever I hear Barbra Streisand now, I just think of that whole scene in the Licorice Pizza trailer when Bradley Cooper's like, have you seen that trailer yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna see Dune tomorrow, and I hear that it plays before Dune.
You'll probably see it then.
Yeah.
I won't ruin it for you then. I always just think of Bradley Cooper in that part of it. All right, we're gonna shift to another new release. Jessica.
Speaking of musicals, here's a movie that has no music in it, hardly, really. It's Lamb. Surprise, it's Lamb.
It's Lamb. Produced by Bella Tarr.
Yeah.
I did not know this until Seth's review on Letterboxd.
That's right. I don't know who
I learned
that is,
so much from
but
Seth, so.
Oh, he made Satan Tango, the
Okay.
7.5 hour Hungarian slow cinema film.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Come on,
sounds,
Jessica.
Sounds crazy.
Keep up.
Sounds
Jessica.
crazy.
Like, do you know movies?
Bella Tarr. He has a cool name, so I'll give him
Yep.
that. Who else has a cool name? The director of this movie, Valdemir Johansson.
Voldemort.
And no,
That's how it's pronounced.
Valdemir. Anyways, yeah, so I'm sure that people have seen the marketing for this. So it's an A24 movie, and so it was like all over the place. And I will say that when I saw the trailer for this, I was like, I want to see this.
I
And-
saw it. I will not see this.
Yeah,
That's my response.
That's sad. The reason why it spoke to me so much is because it was very obviously from the trailer about like the grief that a mother feels when they lose a child. And I immediately was like, this, even from the trailer, which tried to be mostly vague, I was like, this is what this movie is about. This is about a mom who is grieving, and so she like has a replacement child to like replace the child that she lost. And so I saw the trailer. I knew that is what it was probably going to be about, and I went in like pretty hopeful.
You think it was about a lamb?
What?
I would have assumed it was something around the lamb.
No,
I don't know about a missing child or some shit. I thought I would
no.
have assumed the lamb.
No, because like in the trailer, it shows
a
them
lamb.
like they're all shocked about
lamb.
they're all shocked about the lamb that's born, and so I was like, okay, obviously something is going on with this.
Well, it's like a lamb. It's like a humanoid lamb, right?
Yeah.
Like it walks
So
on
it's
two
like-
legs and wears
yeah.
clothes and stuff.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
half lamb, half child, who also just makes like sweet like child noises, like baby noises, whenever it is like communicating with the mom and dad. But like, so the plot of the movie is that
Titus looking it up.
this
Yeah, Titus is on Google Images right now looking at
Okay,
lamb,
that's
and
good.
people
Go
who
ahead.
are watching this on YouTube can enjoy his facial expression.
this
go ahead.
so this couple, they just like live on a farm in Iceland. They're very isolated, and they are taking care of all of these like lambs, which I was like, lambs grow up to be like sheep, right? Is that right?
I think kids grew up to be lambs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think.
No, I thought kids were goats. That's a child goat. That's a baby
Oh,
goat.
you're right. Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
anyways, I think lambs grow up to be sheep. I'm
I don't know
pretty
what
sure.
any of you
Anyways.
guys are talking about.
But anyways, so they're like isolated in this place, and they have all of these sheep that they're taking care of. They have a farm dog, they have a farm cat, and they're doing all of this work, obviously like very strenuous labor on the farm, and they're taking care of all these sheep, and the sheep are giving birth. And so they show the woman, and she is like, I forget the actress's name. I know.
Numi Rapace.
Yes, Numi Rapace, and she is like delivering all of these lambs, and one day and it doesn't even show it right away, but like one day they both kind of freak out and look at the baby that is born, and they're confused, but they also are like happy about it. Like they're very like, oh wow, like we got to take care of this thing now. And so they wrap it up in a blanket, and you don't really get to see like what the lamb child looks like until later on. But
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yes.
This isn't a Titan situation where a human has sex with a lamb, right?
No.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
No, I'm not gonna spoil the ending because I think it is a very like gut punchy type of ending. So I'm not gonna say. But no, I also thought that maybe is what happened, but it's not. It's even more mysterious, like a supernatural lore type of thing that happens. But so they start taking care of this child, and you notice that they already have a crib, they already have children's clothes, they already have the clothes of like a little girl. And so you're kind of like, okay, I get it. Like you start putting the pieces together that she definitely like lost a daughter, and now this is like their replacement child. But
they're just resourceful.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, but
Amazon Prime can go anywhere.
Anyways, be quiet. And so they like this child becomes a part of the family, and from there the movie does this tonal shift where it becomes like very sweet. And I've seen people compare it to Paddington, which makes a lot of sense because it is just like very heartwarming, and it's like they're like splashing each other in the bathtub, and it's like really sweet. and it becomes like so sweet, but then it like jerks back into horror territory and is like, well, actually you can't take, just because you lost something, you can't take it from somebody else. And so nature is like pissed off and is like, this is not yours, you shouldn't have done this. And then shit just gets bad from there, but like turns back into the horror movie. And so I really liked it. I thought that it was great. The acting is amazing, and I think the messaging in the movie is really good. And I didn't think that it was corny or cheesy. There were lots of people laughing in the theater while we were watching this, which I understand because it is, weird to see a half lamb, half child thing walking around in a sweater and having like a flower crown on its head and stuff. And I'm sure that's weird, but I also thought that it was like very sweet, and I didn't think that it was corny. And yeah, so the thing that like kind of annoyed me about people's response to this movie is that I think that it got wrote off as this like, oh, this is an A24 horror movie, so it's doing kind of like all of the same marketing that it did with Midsommar, and has lots of similarities with Midsommar because it is like a daylight horror movie. There's actually never nighttime in the film ever. And I think that it's a time in Iceland where they have, I think, 6 months of daylight or something like that. And so the sun never sets in the film at all. And it creates this like eerie, like foggy type of atmosphere. And also like there's lots of depth added to Numi Rapace's character because she is like a grieving mother, and you can tell that when she's been delivering these lambs like over and over. I mean, they take care of like 200 sheep, and so she has to see that like babies being born all the time, but she doesn't have one of her own. And so I think that there were lots of extra steps in the movie that made the message like hit home, and I thought that it was done so well. And the thing that like aggravated me the most is like people writing it off or thinking that it was like corny or stupid or silly. And also like everyone talking about Titane being this amazing film that's 3 different movies in one, and like Lamb is also like 2 different movies in one. It's like a family movie and also a horror movie. So it's
she doesn't fuck up.
It is funny that like that
Sad.
Titane has gotten like this enthusiastically positive response, and this movie got completely written off.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who did completely write off this movie, but you're selling it to me. Maybe I'll watch it as part of my like year-end wrap-up stuff.
That would be nice. But yeah, so I mean, that really aggravated me with Titane because Titane has very like outlandish things going on in it, and people praise that. And this movie takes kind of like those same risks, but it is not praised in the same way, which confuses me because I think that the message hits harder and is more important than whatever Titane is trying to say.
We talked about this when The Green Knight came out, but my theory is that it's the the baggage that now exists in film culture about A24. Like everybody has to have their hot take about why A24 is bad actually. Yeah.
Can we explain the plot of Titan so that Titus can react to that?
Yeah.
If he reacted that way to Lamb, let me tell you what's going to happen with Titan.
Let me get Google ready. All right.
Okay. We'll do that for the patrons on the break. We won't do that for the podcast. That's a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna Lamb, I believe, is you can rent it or stream it if you're looking for it there. But I don't believe it's in theaters anymore. But
nope,
it is rentable. So we're gonna take a quick break and then we'll be back talking about Shrek the Musical, Shrek Retold.
Sure will. Okay, so Titan is a French horror film about a woman who fucks a car.
And you watch her fuck the car.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of this?
I watched this podcast for y'all. Okay, okay. So she fucks the car, and then what?
She fucks the car
and then gets pregnant with the car's baby.
Oh yeah, and then y'all were talking about lactation, but like oil.
Yes.
Oil things. Yeah,
it's not good.
But there's also this very long plot. The movie takes a complete left turn halfway through, and it becomes about that's her as a kid. Okay. It takes this left turn halfway through where she is on the run from the police because she's also maybe a serial killer? Question mark.
She definitely is a serial killer.
She's a serial killer.
She kills people for no reason.
But that's like this weird background like factoid that like doesn't really come up all that much in the movie that she's a serial killer. And so she's on the run. She hears about this like famous missing persons case, like this guy who lost his son many years ago and he's looking for his son. And so she decides that she kind of looks like the son and therefore she completely changes her like clothing, presentation, etc., to look like the grown-up version of this son and presents herself to this dad as like, I'm your long lost son. But she also refuses to speak because she thinks her voice will give her away. So she is posing as a mute version of this grieving man's long lost son while also growing increasingly pregnant with a car baby.
As you do.
It's ridiculous and bad.
Look, I feel like I say this in jest frequently, but that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's also an extremely violent movie.
Also, it won a Palme d'Or. So, like, out of all the movies in the entire world, this movie was given a Palme d'Or.
If I could whistle, I would have.
It's not good.
I watched it at TIFF. I watched it on like on a big like an IMAX screen, and that really added an effect to it.
No, thank you.
It was
that
crazy.
Sounds awful. That sounds
it was
bad.
But you saw that oil in HD.
Yeah.
Oh no, that sounds really bad.
Those oily nipples.
Speaking of oily nipples, let's talk about Shrek.
Let's talk about Shrek. Let's talk about my friend Shrek.
Our friend
Shrek.
Also, after watching the plot of Shrek 1 for the third time today, I decided that Shrek, I just want to throw this out there. This is a Patreon exclusive as well. Shrek is a libertarian.
He is. Yeah, he's an anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah. Because just want to toss that out there. That's why because I was thinking
that's why Seth can't stand him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Like Seth's on to something where like Shrek sucks. I'm like, oh, it's because he's a libertarian.
Yeah.
Anyway,
by the way, Zach, there were I think two things I wanted to tell you about, but I can only remember one of them right now. There's a really good video essay that I recently watched from the YouTuber Big Joel. Are you familiar with Big Joel? He Big Joel's great. He's one of the best YouTubers. You should
Are you
watch it.
familiar with Big Joel?
Have you heard the good
Not in
news
that
about
sense.
Big Joel? But he has a video essay about not just Shrek, but the Shrek series, where he analyzes the themes of the first one and then talks about how the themes of the first one are complicated in the second one, and then traces those same themes in the third and the fourth one, which he acknowledges are terrible.
So
But like
what we're doing.
we didn't. I don't think we spent any time actually like reading Shrek 3 or Shrek 4.
No.
We just kind of talked about how like
We were just-
insufferable they are to watch. But like he kind of actually walks through like the implications of all four movies in a way that is really fascinating. I will link you to it.
Lucinda or listen, the stats are going up. The people have spoken. They like Shrek.
They like
So-
Shrek. Everybody likes Shrek.
Yeah.
Everybody's favorite ogre. You would love Big Joel. You should
Yeah, I'm
watch
just
him.
like trying to reconcile how like wildly different my movie tastes are from y'all. It's kind of intimidating.
Freaky stuff. We love freaky stuff.
We're just a little bit freaky
Well,
with our Lamb Child movies and our
car
other
babies.
stuff. And our-
Have you guys seen anything by is
Big
it
Joel.
Joachim Trier? Is that his name?
Yeah, I've seen Thelma. I
Is it
thought it was
good?
okay.
Did you like it?
Jordan loved it. I think
Hmm.
Jesse really liked it too. It's kind of like an art house superhero movie. It's
Mm.
like the X-Men, but in
Hmm.
like imagine the A24 version of X-Men. It's not an A24 movie, but that's the vibe.
Well, I asked Neon for a screener for The Worst Person in the World, so
Oh, cool.
and try
Yeah.
to see that. But I don't know. I don't know what they'll say.
Yeah, let me know if you get it. I'll put you on the old calendar.
Yeah.
Do you think you can write about the worst person in the world, or
I'm like
You
Zach
could be like,
Dennis.
as
I
the
like
worst person
Zach
in the world.
Zachary Miles Dennis was born on.
like I just like in front of a house, just like, hey, that was rude.
Wait, I gotta close out my Audacity and then open up a new one.
Did anybody else
Oops.
realize the guy who played Shrek was also played at one of the journalists in Spotlight?
Yeah, I looked him up because
No.
I was
funny.
wondering what the ethnicity of all the ogres were in the movie, and then I looked
There's
him
two.
up. What's that? No, there are three. There are
It's
four
his
ogres.
parents. Yeah, it's the parents and then this
That's right.
child Shrek.
And then when I looked up who plays Shrek, I was like,
Brian Darcy.
he doesn't look like what I'm looking at right now at all.
No. We would actually, my ex and I got in arguments because he found him so attractive, and I'm like, no, that man is not attractive.
Did he
So-
find him attractive
Yeah.
in Shrek?
Maybe that was the issue.
Wait,
I
how do
never
you
asked
spell
him to
this guy's
specify.
name? Brian Darcy James.
Brian with an I, yeah, and then it's like D
Whoa.
apostrophe.
It's super pretentious.
Yeah,
This man's got a large forehead.
he does.
He has a large forehead.
like, no, thank you.
I just like him in the Shrek costume.
Yeah, he's white. Sutton Foster is white. I want to say the dad is one of the three pigs. And then the mom also plays Humpty Dumpty in the musical. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, was Humpty Dumpty was supposed to be that lady with the big pants?
I couldn't tell if that was Humpty Dumpty or Tweedledee /
I
Tweedledum.
know! It's
Actually-
confusing.
I think it's contested. However, she does have that line where she uses the term like off the wall, and so I think that's our like giveaway. That
Why
it's Humpty
wouldn't they
Dumpty.
make someone look like an egg? You guys have the power to do this. Just make somebody look like an egg.
You transformed Brian Darcy
recently
James
read
into
that,
an ogre.
like, nowhere in the rhyme does it actually address Humpty Dumpty as an egg.
He's not an egg. He just falls apart.
Yeah. Well, don't we all?
Don't we? Yeah. Exactly.
Whatever. He's an
Okay.
egg to me.
We need to save these sweet morsels for the podcast. Let's get into it.
All right.
Give me a tall rosé and I'll fall apart too. All right, let's talk about Shrek the Musical.
Wow.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Oh,
And
hold
we're-
on. I got an error. Sorry. Give me a second.
Oh, you ruined it, Andrew.
Jesus Christ. Hold on. I'm going to have to export my first audio file. God damn it.
Okay, this
What
time,
number?
Zach, 376. This time, Zach, you have to sing us in. You have to
And
sing us
now
in.
we're back. All right, I got you. Just
All
for
right.
you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Even though you called me the worst person in the world 1 minute ago.
It was a joke. It was a joke.
Yeah, it really was funny.
Okay, I'm ready now.
All right.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 376 of Cinematary.
Yes,
In this
thank
part,
you.
We're gonna be talking about Shrek the Musical.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Amazing. That was great.
Oh,
Thank
man.
you.
You are an all-star, Zach.
Hey now. Directed by Jason Moore with lyrics and story from David Lindsay Abire, something. And music from Janine Tesori. The musical was based on the Shrek movies. And I liked in the description they specified Shrek 1, Shrek 2, and Shrek 4. They just left Shrek 3.
They should have left Shrek 4 off, too.
Yeah, they based it on the movies along with the book by William Steig. It opened on Broadway in December 2008 and closed after a 12-month run in January 2010. Lindsay Abaire and Moore began working on the show in 2002, so a year after the first movie came out, with Tesori joining the team in 2004. The first reading of the play took place on August 10th of 2007. It premiered in an out-of-town tryout in Seattle in 2008 with an opening night of September 10th. The tryout ran through the 21st and was played to favorable reviews, being cited as one of the few movie-to-stage adaptations, quote, with heart. Brian Darcy James talked about playing Shrek. He said, the first time we ran through the show in rehearsal, I had a bit of a dehydration situation with a terrible headache. At the time I was playing a different role and I wasn't exercising and I was eating cheeseburgers and shakes every other day just because I could, and it was helpful. I know it's such a lame excuse to do this for the play, but after all that junk food, I was not physically prepared for what's required to play Shrek. To be honest, I never expected it to be that challenging, but once you put that thing on and run around for 2 hours, it's a real wake-up call. Just because Shrek is a big oaf doesn't mean that I can be as well. There can't be a Shrek underneath the Shrek.
Wow.
I'm putting on
He
the
has layers, just like an onion.
Oh my goodness.
He does. On putting on the costume, he says it took 2 hours altogether, give or take 10 minutes. It's about an hour and a half of putting makeup on, and then I take a half hour or so to myself. During the makeup part, there are 3 people in the room at all times, 2 makeup people in my dresser, and a lot of activity going on, which is a new thing for me. I'm used to having my own time to get ready, so I have a few minutes to myself, and then I get into the costume. Daniel Breaker, who played Donkey, on how they approached the musical, he said, I think what we were doing was we are taking some of the benefits that come with live theater and applying that to this iconic story. So there were no pressure to impersonate Eddie Murphy or impersonate Cameron Diaz's voice. If anything, we were celebrating the story even further by taking it onto a new medium. And then we're almost coming full circle here by bringing it back to the screen with this new release, which I think captures all of the living, breathing excitement of the live stage performance and bringing you just a little closer so you can see certain elements and nuances from the acting that you might not see while watching it on the stage. So I think it sort of ups the pleasure of watching the story even further. So, Shrek the Musical.
I think we need to start with Titus.
Yeah, let's start with Titus because
yeah, they definitely hit the nail on the head. There are a lot of Broadway adaptations of movies that like do really terribly, and interestingly, well, depending on how interested you are in it, Brian Darcy James. So, yeah. The guy I don't care as much about, and Sutton Foster, who played Fiona, who is just immaculate.
She's great.
A goddess. She's absolutely the best talent in that film.
I agree.
Film.
It's filmed.
It is filmed. But so basically the two of them are credited as like, this didn't tank because we had cast them. I think from what I know of, sort of how it was received, if it had not been for those two, it absolutely would have tanked and we wowould not be here. And
man, what a different world that we could be living in.
Let's just all take a moment to think about that world.
We need to maybe go find Rumpelstiltskin and see what he can do about that world.
Yeah, I mean, I love it from a musical perspective. The issue is, however, there are only two good actors in the whole thing, and it's Sutton Foster and the man who plays Lord Farquaad. You said no or yes?
No, I said yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the acting is terrible. And there's one of my biggest issues with the musical is particularly with the guy playing Donkey. I think so many of the sort of trademark lines that we know from the movie fall so flat because of his delivery.
Jessie did not watch it with me, but she was kind of like listening to it from the other room and kind of walking around the house. And her observation about it is that it's so weird to hear the script of the movie read aloud by people who are not the actors from the movie, and especially Donkey's stuff, because they're all laugh lines, and because Shrek kind of relies on shock humor, if you know what the words are, it's not as funny. And it's especially not as funny if there's this weird uncanny valley element of hearing it come out of somebody else's mouth, which is interesting to consider in relation to Shrek Retold, where we're hearing it coming from 200 different people's mouths later. But anyways, I totally derailed you. What do you like about it? 'Cause you said as a musical,
I love the songs. And then I have multiple times showed my class. I teach math, so it's super content related. I have shown multiple classes the scene of Sutton Foster's Morning Person, where she does the tap dancing with the rats, because I think it's the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's one of the best parts of the movie.
It's hysterical.
Sure. Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere. You have your musical, you've got to have a dance break, but this one I wasn't expecting.
And the fact, the reveal of first you're watching her tap dance with all these people's feet dressed up as rats, and then the curtain comes back and it's full rat people.
I want to say that I was sort of on the fence about how I felt about this musical until that. Once it got there, I was okay, I think I get where they're going with this. I hate the line delivery. Darcy James is a really great singer, but he's not portraying Shrek well, in my opinion. And Donkey's awful. But at that moment, it kind of started making sense to me. And I think that's part of why I still enjoy it. Even though there are so many parts that I also do not love.
It's a strange experience because it is and I think this is kind of the main emphasis of this whole series, the kind of pieces that resonate with people and then the pieces that you leave out. So the musical was fascinating because you have all of these moments that are just what about this moment that where you we have to keep this from the movie and reimagine it in the musical, like you mentioned, Titus, there's a number of parts with Donkey where
we need the parfaits scene.
Yeah, where that's only memorable because Eddie Murphy pulls it off. It's like it's not memorable if anybody else says it, just because it's Eddie Murphy. I think also there's a lot of that with the guy who plays Lord Farquaad is good, but there's like I think he's also kind of playing a different character than Lord Farquaad is in the movie.
Yeah,
and
I'd
so
agree
like
with
when he does that, like whenever he has like his big musical number and things like that, he's good because he's kind of playing a whole different character. But whenever he's kind of having to reenact the movie scenes, it also and so like watching the musical was just, it's just kind of like this uncanny valley to a degree of like like it's you're just reenacting portions of the movie, and to me again, like there's like strange jokes that they latched onto, like like you have the one about maybe he's compensating for something, or you have the onion scene, or you have the gingerbread man, the muffin man scene, like what about that did you were like, we gotta bring that in for the musical?
And I think part of the issue, and I think Legally Blonde, the musical, available on YouTube in full, is a really good example of a musical that adapted a movie but changed. And like, there's the whole scene of Legally Blonde where she's caught with the professor, and what's her face, the bitch is like such a jerk to her about it. But in the musical, that scene plays out completely differently. They change sort of the take on that, and they do that throughout the movie. And I think Shrek the Musical's biggest fallacy for me is that they were like, let's make Shrek the movie a musical and not adapt Shrek to a musical. Like, yeah, we added music, but again, we didn't really like change anything. We were still expecting those same lines that they were trying to play.
And that's what's so strange, I think, about like this, like adapting this compared to something like Legally Blonde has like lines and stuff that people like want to hear again. But I think overall it's like that story. Like the thing about Shrek is it has very specific moments that are attuned to like the movie, that they're like, well, we want to recreate that. And that just seemed like the whole sequence, like in the castle when they're saving Fiona, it just seemed kind of off, because you're just like, yeah, it doesn't work because it's not.
But like we talked about in the first episode of the series, and like I'm sure we're going to talk about in Retold, Shrek has this weird effect on people where they wanna reenact it, they wanna meme it, they wanna quote it, and so I feel like a version of this that didn't have those like Shrekisms in it would maybe be like an inauthentic Shrek movie, if that makes sense, right? Like it's not capturing the spirit of the thing. I don't know.
Well, let's just be honest. You also got the theater kid energy going on in this thing. It's sucking it down. You got the fairy tale creatures with the Pinocchio guy, who honestly should be in jail.
I have a thought about this, but Jessica hasn't come into the conversation yet, and I know that she also has thoughts about this. So
go for it,
Jessica. What's your take?
Bad. I thought it was bad. And I'm like, and I would consider myself a mild musical person. Like I was like obsessed with the Gerard Butler like Phantom of the Opera movie when I was a kid, and also I was in musicals and stuff like in middle school and in high school, and so I would say that I am not like completely soured on them, but I just thought this was like not great. The things that impressed me about it were I really liked Lord Farquaad and I liked Fiona a lot. Obviously, you guys talked about like her tap dancing scene was amazing. Also, the what do you call the villagers doing their dance? Is it, what are they called? Duloc?
Oh, the Duloc, the puppet show. It's a Small World.
That was amazing. I thought that was super good, and they were all like perfectly synchronized, and also they were like the little like animatronic like puppet dolls, which is like really hard to do, and that was super impressive.
Was he like, he had like kind of like black pants or whatever, so that he was like, was he on his knees?
He was on his knees.
That sounds awful.
There's actually a joke about him not getting the whatever the Broadway award is.
The Tony.
And the joke is, who else could spend 2 hours on their knees and not get a Tony from it?
Oh, that's so good. Oh. Yeah, like his performance was amazing, and there were like pieces of it where I was like, okay, this is great, this is good. And I think that watching it in person would change kind of like how you feel about it as like live performances do. I think you could really appreciate the amount of effort that people are putting into it. But it is so long and it drags on. And like by the time we get to the ending at the wedding, I'm just like, for the love of God, like this is like sucked the energy out of my body. Like it just dragged on for so long.
I also feel like, and I'm going to talk about Legally Blonde a lot because I just feel like it's like the perfect like foil to this, like an adaptation that went well versus Shrek. And so I think another issue with Shrek is they made it for the wrong audience. There are at least like a score of musical references that they're making. So like there's a point in his song, he like calls out Wicked and Gypsy. And there's another song he calls back to Funny Girl. And it's just like, there are stacks and stacks of these musical references, and a person who's watching Shrek the Musical because they like the movies, I'm
curious about that, because one of the things that's most interesting about the first Shrek movie is the way that it's like satirizing Disney. And it's working in the same industry as Disney.
Think that's the issue, because Shrek the Musical didn't do that. Like they're no longer, I think tried to go into being Disney instead of satire.
Well, I mean, I guess my thought is like that they're not really, I mean, I guess there's kind of some Disney-fied elements of the musical, but I'm wondering like when they're referencing other musicals, which feels like an appropriate pivot to make, because I didn't catch these references because I'm not well versed in Broadway. Is the Shrek musical making points about them? Is it like taking the piss out of Broadway in any sort of like pointed way, or is it just like, hey, I understood that reference?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily pointed. Maybe the Lion King the musical reference where they're like, the travel song, that felt a little pointed. And then when he does the high note from Wicked on top of his castle, that could be considered point. But I think the rest are just like, here's a reference that our gays and musical fans might pick up.
Well, yeah, here's my go ahead, sorry, Jessica.
And then they were like, here's them just farting on stage for like 2 minutes.
I kind of like that. But I mean, my basic take on the musical is related to the Disney stuff, because that's one of the main things that the musical takes out. Going back to what you said, Zach, about like the question of what do you take out of a Shrek adaptation versus what do you leave in? It's not a movie anymore. It's not an animated movie. So the idea of lampooning other animated movies seems like irrelevant. So they take out all the Disney stuff. And so there's like all this room for the movie to play around, or for the musical to play around with, that is kind of created when you take all those things out of it. And my basic read is that like they try to lean into it as kind of a sincere story about outsiders. And I was talking to Zach in the break between parts of this about this video essay by the video essayist Big Joel, which is about the Shrek series, which is a good companion piece to our podcast series, where he kind of talks about like the way the series the way the series like handling of like marginalized people, like kind of in broad strokes, how that evolves over the course of the series. And this musical is, to go back to the idea that it has like big theater kid energy, and like really celebrates the idea that people who are into theater, many of whom are in the queer community, feel like kind of outsiders from mainstream society who want everybody to be this like perfect conformed way, kind of symbolized by Farquaad and the Duloc people. And I felt like it makes a much stronger point about that stuff than the movie does, which kind of like this is kind of like an accidental implication of the movie, I feel like, or its main goal is lampooning Disney. Whereas with the musical, like it really wants to say something about that experience. And like I found it really sincere. And I thought that it worked. And to the extent where like when I found myself cringing at the fairy tale creatures or whatever, I was like, I can't be too hard on these people, you know, like they're just different, you know, I shouldn't be judging them.
I think where Shrek the Musical just really fails is, again, it's like they're trying to balance too many things and they do none of them well. So like trying to drive that message home, trying to pull in quotes from the movie, trying to have music that hits, trying to, you know, do the Disney, like all of that. So like Legally Blonde, like the bend and snap, we all remember like the bend and snap scene in the movie. Well, they devote an entire song to that.
It's one of the worst parts of the movie. I can imagine it being great in the musical.
Yeah, the musical is hysterical. It's like this chorus of like girls in the salon and they're doing the bend and snap. And then like another one I think is when they have that witness who turns out to be gay. Yeah. Their whole song is he European or gay? And it's like it plays to these memorable scenes of the movies, but it turns them into a musical, which is kind of like the whole point, right? We have this memorable scene from the movie that we want to see, and it's turning it into a musical aspect. Whereas Shrek the Musical, all of these were just lines. They never created like songs necessarily devoted to these lines. And I think that's kind of this like there's just so much going on. And none of it's good.
But you love it.
But
I've
I've
watched it so many times.
Because Sutton Foster, I could listen to her sing forever and her facial expressions. She is the only reason I'm as invested in the film as I am.
I think the like song that works the best as its own like standalone piece is like her song where you see her as a kid and then a teenager and as an adult. Like genuinely pretty moving, I found. I don't know.
It was good. I don't know if I was moved by it.
No, I was moved. I felt a feel.
I felt that in the farting scene.
That was good too.
It was like a fart battle. It's like, all right.
That song was good too.
Like, did they get?
It's like a weird like Led Zeppelin back and forth. It was good.
Like, did they get nominated for Tonys for this thing?
I'm sure they did.
I thought it won a bunch of Tonys. I'm surprised you didn't mention it in your fact sheet.
I did. I went under the assumption that there were no awards won.
Hold on.
I'm looking it up. Shrek the Musical.
They don't give Tonys to people that fart, so.
This is serious art.
This is serious only.
Do you think they fart in Hamilton? No.
You think they fart in Les Mis? They don't.
Maybe, because they're all dirty.
No,
Brian Darcy James won for
Shrek?
Outstanding Actor in a Musical.
He
got Best Costume Design too.
He won for
Best Costume Design at 1 too.
Longest makeup time. He won for that.
He was going for the Leo DiCaprio award, where let's go overboard
in
our preparation.
The Brian Darcy James award wasn't a Tony; it was a different ceremony.
Sorry.
But yeah,
so
that makes sense.
When they put the Shrek head on people, it's like a head that goes on your regular head. And do they have like patches for where their ears are?
Yeah, you can see he has like differently colored like little ear holes.
Patches. The thing that is so funny about this musical specifically to me is that I remember when it first came out and was on Broadway, because after that, a bunch of local children's theaters started putting it on. Yeah. And there were so many really bad like Shrek costumes for kids, like where they would just like tape the kid's like head and then paint it like green and like glue the ears on it. And it was like every children's theater was like, we're putting on Shrek the Musical. And the kid would just walk out and it was like so bad.
So really, in retrospect, what did this do for the theater kids? Because it seemed like it just embarrassed a bunch of kids. Consternation.
It was like fund the arts, people. We need money.
I want to. overall, whatever. It'll be fine. Overall, whatever. It'll be fine. I just want to erase that man's face as Pinocchio out of my brain because it didn't sit right with me. It just didn't sit right with me.
He just has like a wooden chin painted on. It's not like the whole face. It's just like parts of it.
And then it's like the nose move. Oh, wow.
And it's
I didn't like
the strap.
I just didn't like it.
I never noticed the nose receding. Every time the nose grew longer, I was like, oh, wow, when did it shrink?
I don't know. I had so many questions about the nose. I just wanted to be like, halt the play. So is somebody is there a button in the back or is he pushing something? What's going on?
He's got a button.
Does he have the button?
I'm sure he has the button.
Honestly, shout out to the Sugar Plum Fairy who was also the gingerbread man, and she had to be a ventriloquist.
She's not a good ventriloquist.
She was not. She was a very bad.
She did her best.
I just love her first line where for no discernible reason, she just has this deep European accent. Just what the fuck? Maybe you could talking to him, y'all. And then you play the gingerbread man?
Aw.
Anyway, Shrek the Musical. It's on Netflix if you want to go that route. But we'll see.
Speaking of bad Shrek costumes, we should talk about Shrek Retold.
It's fantastic. Shrek Retold. This came out in 2018. It's directed by Grant Dufresne, and it's a recreation of the 2001 film Shrek, but it includes more than 200 animators, different performers, live action, etc. Litany of different things. Quote, a big driving point for making this remake was pulling together a bunch of talented people online for a singular project, the kind of people I want to see work on a movie, Dufresne told Wired. The kind of entertainment I wish there was more of, bizarre, surreal, homemade. To start the process, Dufresne went through the original film with a fine-tooth comb, clipping up every scene and putting each into an individual folder of reference material. He summarized every scene in a Google Doc, which he shared with everyone who answered a call to collaborate. The document was headed with a warning for the volunteers, quote, don't bite off more than you can chew. Each of the 96 scenes Dufresne outlined was color-coded. Red meant it was already taken, with other colors denoting whether part of the scene or its music or dialogue had already been claimed. Quote, I made a little list of guidelines for contributors so that the pieces stayed true and didn't get out of hand. And I swear no one read it. Once all the scenes were claimed, the volunteers set to work communicating with each other on a Discord server. For one of the contributors, Brian Voigt, it was a case of learning how to animate for the first time. Quote, I used Adobe After Effects and Photoshop. I first animated Donkey. I built a rig for his head, body, and limbs and wanted to make him look sort of abstract and MoGraphy. He, like others, began sharing clips of his work on the Discord server. Quote, there were a lot of clips shared, tons of beautifully done parts, and tons of amazingly weird parts. So yeah, this is on YouTube for those who are curious. There is also, I guess, coming soon at some point is Shrek 2 Retold.
Oh, wow.
It sounds exciting. But I don't know. So this was the first time I had seen this. I know I had seen people talking about it a couple years ago when it had come out first. I loved every second of this. This was great. I like all of the community shit of everybody coming together, reading it in this weird fucking way, and I loved every second of this. This was fantastic. 5 stars. I don't know if anybody else felt that way.
No, I really enjoyed it. And I watched these 2 movies back to back last night. I came home from work and immediately pressed play on Shrek the Musical. Took a short break to eat dinner and then finished it and then watched
to your wife and maybe just enjoy life or something.
She was off doing something else. She had plans for the evening. And it had been 3 weeks since I had seen Shrek content that didn't make me want to die.
Nice.
And the musical I found surprisingly charming, and then this I thought was just so like Galaxy Brain inspired. I did like have to take a shower afterwards just to kind of wash the Shrek off of me. Like it was a whole evening, right? But I'm really glad I watched it.
I just need to wash the Shrek off me.
Now, Titus, I know, watched it first thing in the morning this morning, which sounds like a lot.
So I was watching Shrek the Musical. I was like, oh shit, I've got that thing. So I'm like, okay, let's watch Shrek the Musical. And then I was like, oh man, I have to watch that other one he told me to watch. And so I stopped Shrek the Musical to watch Shrek Retold. One of the more painful experiences in my life. It was. I'm just gonna say my piece real quick, and then I will interject like as necessary. I love the idea. I like, this is amazing. You have these volunteers like just contributing to this huge, like, it is exactly like too many cooks in the kitchen, but also I'd argue weren't maybe enough. Like I could have done more even.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. It was the little things that like it was very interesting. But did I enjoy it? Not at all.
Did it make you laugh? Like I laughed out loud alone in my house several times.
There were a few times. I found it very interesting how many scenes were voiced by children. I was like,
or voiced by AIs, or voiced by just anything. Yeah.
I did like the I think my favorite animation style was when Fiona like makes eggs, and then when they actually start talking and it's this like robotic thing with the subtitles.
Oh, I actually that's like a text to speech thing, right?
That was good. I greatly enjoyed the scene when they like fight at Farquaad's play and it was like an anime.
Yeah.
That's
my favorite.
There's a couple anime sequences that are amazing.
Jessica, what about you?
I thought that it was very funny. I didn't really know what to expect. I hadn't seen it before, and I had heard about it, but I was like, I don't know if I want to like put myself through that. And obviously, when you have that many people contributing to a thing, it has its highs and it has its lows. There are like parts where it was so ugly that I was like, I can't even really look with my eyeballs. Like it kind of burned your eyes a little bit when you looked at it, where they were like floppy looking and just like walking around, but you still got the gist of like, this is Shrek and this is Donkey.
I feel like that's true to the spirit of Shrek.
It's
like if it burns your eyes.
That's so true to the spirit of Shrek. That's why I loved it.
And there were people where I was like, please change to the next person. Please change to the next person. And I was like, please. And there were people where I was like, I don't want you to change. I want it to play through this style for the rest of the movie.
What if every artist made the whole movie and there was a situation where you could just like flip channels while you're watching it? Can you imagine?
My number one favorite one was the We're in Love montage where it was cool. Like them floating up in the air and the heart clouds coming down. Oh, it was so beautiful.
It looks like Matt Fury, the guy who made Pepe the Frog. I don't know if it's actually him.
Well, that's I was going to ask you, Andrew. That's one thing I thought about with this is I thought about the documentary Feels Good Man, and like that kind of like radical fandom around that, like especially like how people kind of reinterpreted Pepe the Frog for him. I was thinking about that a lot with this, where it's just like, because what's so wonderful about the movie is just all of these, you know, everybody loves Shrek way too much, and it's all of these like every interpretation is coming from just some fucking weird place, but it's all with like this central conceit of like, we love Shrek and we're just interpreting this scene in this random way, which I think is so goddamn true to what this movie is.
I haven't, by the way. My phone is currently playing it on like double speed in front of us while we're talking about it, and we just got to the part where Donkey does the "I'm making waffles" line, and they turn it into like this EDM dance remix. While we're just kind of like listing off great moments of it, I can't not mention the part where they're running away from the dragon's fire, and it's just footage from Dark Souls with Shrek's face pasted over it.
Ironically enough, I think we were watching at the same pace at the same time, because I literally watched that, and then I get a message from Andrew going, Dark Souls reference. I was like,
I'm watching. Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of like get back to a semblance of focus here, like, I think that your point comparing it to Feels Good Man is a really interesting one. I wasn't thinking about it while I was watching, but it's interesting what both of those films kind of like implicitly say about the nature of the internet, right? Like, Feels Good Man, the internet is like this kind of amoral machine that just kind of like consumes and churns and vomits out everything it touches in ways that can be good and ways that can be very evil. And in Shrek Retold, it's mostly like chaotic good, right? It's people like channeling this weird, unexplainable enthusiasm for this meme into this greater project that is kind of ends up being greater than the sum of its parts. And it's something that like really makes you, Cam said this in his Letterboxd review of the movie, like it kind of makes you admire like humanity's capacity for creativity on a certain level. Like there's so many moments, like whether they're like unspeakably horrible to look at or they're like incredible and like you can't imagine like how or why someone would dedicate so much time and effort and like discipline to making something so beautiful for such a ridiculous project. Like it reminds me of another Letterboxd review, which just says like, this is proof that communism works. The idea that people can kind of like come together for essentially no personal gain, other than like, just like the love of the project, right? And make something really like amazing. Like I think this movie is amazing, whether you like any individual moment of it or not.
Yeah, like it's a lot. Like I'm not gonna like not be like it's not like it's a lot. Like you know, it is, but at the same time, again, like I was kind of just like looking through all that a lotness and just completely moved. See, I was moved by Shrek Retold. I was not moved at all by Shrek the Musical. I was moved by Shrek.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there is like just this genuine creative focus by all of these different people to make something that feels singular to them, but also is part of this collective like final thing, which I think is, and I also just think about like how, what fandom is, you know, today. Like you think about, I think was it last week we talked about, you know, you think about something like this Free Guy movie or like the Lego movie, where a lot of like the references are, it's like, Batman, and the references that Batman's over there, or it's Superman and Superman's over there. And this one it's more like taking the reference that everybody knows and individualizing it and interpreting it for yourself. And to me, there's like this kind of creativeness in that's much more like endearing than just kind of pointing and going, there's something over there. There's some, you know, this is something that we all know. And you just kind of see that thing. Like this is something that everybody knows what you're talking about. But at the same time, this person is individualizing it and interpreting it in their own way that makes it unique to that moment, which I think it's chaotic because you're going moment to moment of these people doing that. But at the same time, there's something really, again, I think Shrek is the perfect movie to do that with, because Shrek is just this kind of just strange amalgamation of a movie anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and like even with all of those people giving their own interpretation, the point of the movie is still the same. And like I think of the guy who he's like playing Shrek in the scene where Shrek thinks that he hears Fiona saying like, I would never want to be with an ugly monster.
Mhm.
And the dude just looks so heartbroken. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And like, you still really feel that in the story.
There's
Even
so
though
many
a guy's like painted green, obviously walking on the like side of the road in like New York City or something.
There's so many scenes that I imagine are like people with their partner or their spouse acting out like the Shrek and Fiona scenes. That's like weirdly sweet. Like the idea of like Shrek as this thing that brings people together in a weird way.
I also was just kind of thinking about like how people interpret what this means to people, because I think, at least for me, I struggle a lot with like people really having like a deep affection for different facets of pop culture, people who are really into Star Wars or really into Marvel or stuff where they're just incredibly invested into it, where like to the point that like it seems like their personality has deteriorated and it's just spitting out IP nonsense.
And Shrek is monoculture in a way that's kind of distinct from other monoculture, right? Like it doesn't. I know DreamWorks is a big corporation, not necessarily at the scale of a Disney or something like that. But I feel like people's love of Shrek is different from their love of Star Wars or whatever. It's not like we want to buy all the merch and see all the sequels and go to the theme park or whatever. It's like we want to participate in this thing. Like I want to make my own memes of it or make my own version of it or something. Like I don't know. There's something about it. Cam has described it as punk rock before. There's a DIY element to like the way people engage with Shrek.
Yeah, well, I think it goes into like what I think it kind of goes into like kind of meme culture, which is, I think in its essence, supposed to be taking something and reinterpreting it to individualize for yourself. And like Shrek, I think with Shrek, it's so. We talked about it with Michael when we were just kind of talking about like the animation of the first movie, and it just has like this distinct unfinishedness of it, where at any point like there's something that can be distorted and strange, and like it changed, but because by the fourth movie, you think about the fourth movie, it's so like fine-tuned and perfect that there's no like distortion to it. And I think that people respond to Shrek also because I think we like it's strange that we want like these really fine-tuned, not even just animated movies, but like live action movies, because I think that there's something distinctly endearing about movies in general when you can kind of see the cracks.
Yeah, and think about all these video clips that are being shared around on Twitter right now of the new Marvel Eternals movie, and people are like, "Oh man, look at this beautiful cinematography," and it's so boring. It's so like clean, like ugly. Horrifically clean, right? There's like no character to it at all.
Yeah, it's explicitly distinct whenever the gay guy's doing Hiroshima. That's really sticks out to me.
Yeah. I haven't watched the movie to know. I've just seen images. And
I haven't either. I just know that the gay dude does Hiroshima, and I was like, noted. But no, there is this like deep need now with especially big movies, but just movies in general, to really be like, to not have everything kind of be perfect and not have like those cracks in it. But I think that the cracks allow like stuff like this, because whenever you open that up, it allows people who really are affectionate for this thing to kind of interpret it in like take their interpretation of it, so it's still the same thing. What part showed up?
Sorry, we just got to the part where like there's the donkey that's two guys under a tarp.
Three guys.
Is it three guys?
That's the thing. It's three guys. So like he's got 6 legs, which like leads because that was the scene that said like why do we need 6 legs, and also why is Shrek like shredded? Like that particular scene did stick out to me. It's.
I bet that whenever people were filming parts for this movie, that like Eeyore onesies just went up. Like the sales for Eeyore onesies, it's like shot up all of a sudden, and they were like, "What?"
Well, I mean, kind of speaking of that, of like people putting on the costume and being Shrek and being Donkey. Maybe we've already talked about this, but I'm wondering if y'all have any thoughts about like how it feels to hear the lines come out of the mouths of other people, like especially in comparison to the musical, where like sometimes that just feels kind of wrong or off. I mean, my general thought is like, the offness or the wrongness is kind of the point here, and so it works.
I think some of it wasn't wrong enough. Like I feel like if you're not going to sound the exact same, like I feel like you need to commit to making it your own, and I think there are some scenes that did that very well. Like for Shrek the Musical, I will give that credit to Donkey. I don't think he's trying to be Eddie Murphy.
No, I was reading, interviews, and he talked about how he didn't even like watch the movies or anything. He was just like, I'm not going to do an Eddie Murphy impression. I'm going to do a me impression, which I was like, maybe you should have watched something.
I appreciate where your heart is, but wish you had ignored it.
He also said that like the entire cast, at least to that point of the interview, that the entire cast of Shrek had seen the play, but Eddie Murphy had not. So Eddie Murphy anti-Shrek the Musical.
It's interesting how often in Shrek Retold somebody just like pastes a JPEG of Eddie Murphy's face over stuff.
I loved that, and I loved when they did it with John Lithgow, and I loved when they did it with Cameron Diaz. It was great. I wanted more of that, if anything. At one point, they were like standing at one scene. It's just Shrek and a JPEG of Eddie.
Yeah, we just passed that one.
Yeah. And it's like a glamour shot of Eddie Murphy too. It's not Eddie Murphy.
Like, it was weird to me because they're the same people who had the guy with like the horse mask. So like just all of a sudden the guy with the horse mask is so there, and now it's Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
But there is like some level of this thing that is just like kind of tiring, because it feels like your brain is just doing so much, because you're just seeing so many things. And it's like how I feel about if you're just on the internet and you're just like looking at memes, like you're scrolling on Twitter and you're just like looking at them, and it's just kind of like it feels like it's like sucking like energy out of you, like mental energy, because you're like, I've just been staring at this thing laughing for like 30 minutes now, and I'm tired.
That's a really good point. It reminds me of Lindsay Ellis made a video essay about why Michael Bay's movies are so easy to forget. And she talks about how, like, what's the center of the frame, what is the focus of your attention is like constantly changing. Whereas like traditional cinematography, if something is in the center, you cut to another shot where the focus is also in the center. So you're not like, the attention is not like bouncing around all over the place. And this is doing that like as a matter of course, because it's like lots and lots and lots of different artists who don't necessarily know what their counterparts are doing. But then on top of that, you have to like make sense of these very strange images you're looking at. Like some of them don't even like compute. And then you have to like find a way to equate that to, okay, what is this doing in the original Shrek? Like in the back of your mind, you have to have the original Shrek kind of playing mentally. So it's like, it's taxing in terms of like your intellectual energy, right?
Yeah, I have the acute ability of having to have watched all the Shreks up to this point. So I know what was going on.
I mean, I had the opposite experience where like, I think I would have liked this more if I hadn't marathoned the Shrek series over the last couple of weeks, because I'm tired of Shrek at this point. And I think this movie benefits from you like wanting more Shrek, right?
I want more Shrek Retold. That's mainly what I want. I'm excited
wonder
for
if
Shrek 2 Retold.
Is Shrek 2 Retold gonna work in the same way? Because I don't feel like Shrek 2 is like as quotable or memeable of a movie as Shrek.
Yeah, I don't
2
think it'll
was.
be as. I don't think it will, but I'll watch it. I'll watch it. Day one.
Bring back that one guy with the puppets that was singing the Hallelujah song.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Bring that guy back.
That's the biggest affront that the musical just decided no all-star and no.
They do the I'm a Believer.
I'm a Believer.
Yeah, but we need Shrek kicking open the damn door.
Yeah, I really thought they were gonna do it.
And they didn't, and they went into some fucking little musical number, and I was like, God damn, theater kids take all the fun away because we could have Smash Mouth right
I
now.
wonder if it's a licensing thing. Like maybe Smash Mouth didn't let them use it.
Smash Mouth. It's not Led Zeppelin.
They're like, we're gonna have a giant dragon. We can afford to build a giant dragon, but we can't.
That's a
afford
janky
Smash
dragon,
Mouth.
dude. That is a janky
We
dragon.
can't afford Smash Mouth, but we can afford this like huge ass dragon.
Voiced by 3 different women.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just like, you could have kicked a little couple bucks over to Smash Mouth because All Star makes it. And
oh my
instead,
gosh.
Shrek's like singing about.
The problem though, on another level with that, and I would have loved to see it. Make no mistake, is that I'm a Believer. The lyrics actually make sense for the story. All Star, the lyrics are nonsense.
That's what's great about it.
Whatever, it's Shrek's theme song.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to make sense. It's his theme song.
And
he's an all-star.
It didn't even like kick in the mud, and it showed Shrek. They were just sitting there singing about his life, and I'm like, who cares? I didn't care about his dad and his mom, whatever. Little Shrek babies, who cares? He's just like, you're different, little Shrek, and I'm like, just sing All Star and fart. Come on.
But at the end of Retold, the like 80s like montage, like I'm a Believer song is so good.
Yeah.
At the end of Shrek Retold, it was so good.
I like the indie folk all-star at the beginning too.
Yes.
That's true.
That is one thing. I liked the music in Retold a lot.
It's also interesting to just like, if there is a bit of it that you really like and you can figure out who the creator of it was, to like go and see all of the other things that they've made, because they just have this like really long internet history. Like they've been making stuff for a long time. And like the guy who did the ending song, his name's like Hot Dad or something, and I like looked up his other videos and I was like, yeah, I'm into this. Like,
he's hot.
His like music was really good, so I was like, yeah.
Well, Shrek Retold you can find on YouTube. They also have it with the original audio, which I assume means they just stripped the audio from the movie and put it over Retold, which sounds wild.
How does it even match up?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's on YouTube. Go have a fun day and go watch that. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you would like to support us, head over to patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Christina Daughtry, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Speaking of
thank you to Titus Arthur.
I went through some life changes.
Don't make me feel bad about that. Oh my
just
gosh.
kidding. He has been our patron long enough.
And not Titus Arthur. What? No, I was gonna say I thought Titus was the one who wanted us to do Romeo and Juliet, but that was
he did.
But well, okay. I didn't want you to do it. I just was enamored by how much the students wanted y'all to do it, and I was like, look, if I will become a patron, I will.
You committed to the bit.
I did.
You were a patron for like over a year.
Yeah.
You did it for the children. Just what the children wanted.
But what about us? because we had to suffer.
It was bad.
Well, speaking of our patrons, we're going to be doing Patreon picks for the next 3 weeks.
Themed Patreon picks, because we got
Ironic.
Patreon picks that like just weirdly clicked together. We're like, yes, great impromptu series.
Yeah, so we're going to do a military satire.
Well, it's an anti-war series. I don't know if we can
Anti-war
call Grave of the Fireflies a satire.
It's not funny at all.
No.
So an anti-war series. It's gonna be Grave of the Fireflies, Doctor Strangelove, and Starship Troopers. So
Such a good like trio of movies. Very happy about that.
God, it's gonna be next week we're doing Grave of the Fire. It's gonna be a bummer fest.
I've already done my homework. I watched it 2 weeks ago with students, and it is fresh enough. I will not be rewatching it.
I'll just say we can talk about it in the episode that the person, when I asked, I was like, hey, do you have a movie? And he's been going through like long movie lists of stuff. So he's like been looking at a lot of different things he could be talking about. And his first one was, you should watch Grave of the Fireflies. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Like, this person needs help. Someone help this person.
I'm like, you just had a child. And he was just like, yeah, it really depressed me for like 2 weeks. I was like, yeah. So I don't know. Tyler, hope you're doing okay, man. All right. Until next week. Thank you for listening. We'll see you then.
Bye. Sweet. We did it.